We finally got to hear from the Chargers' new superstar head coach, Jim Harbaugh, in his first press conference, and he made it very clear what his goals were for this team. And I think most fans will be happy with the Super Bowl, but not Jim Harbaugh. He wants multiple championships.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys to all the everydayers out there for making us your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss a show, especially ones like this one, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
We got to talk about Jim Harbaugh's press conference and how it's got me wanting to do this podcast with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Man, so exciting. And then we got to talk about Justin Herbert being the crown jewel and how Jim Harbaugh wants to protect him at all costs. And part of that is putting around him an all-star staff that's worthy of coaching Justin Herbert.
So much good stuff, so many Harbaughisms, as I've seen them called, so many weird things that he got to say. We won't even get to all of those things today. Ted Lasso love, $2 steaks, right? So many great things. But today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, who helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, it didn't take very long for Jim Harbaugh to make his presence felt at his opening press conference. And when you think back to Brandon Staley, came out and blew a lot of people away with this press conference and said a lot of things, right? But there was a different sense of just how genuine Jim Harbaugh was. And things just rang very true when he got out there, because it always feels like he's himself, right? And one of the things I loved was just how unabashedly he was willing to put pressure on this team and tell the world exactly why he's with the Chargers, which is this. He said this: it needs to be multiple championships. We're going to be humble and hungry, but that's our goal. That's our goal, is to treat people in a first-class manner and to win multiple championships. He's not good with just bringing the Chargers their first Super Bowl, David, I think, which we would all take, right? But he's right off the bat not afraid to put those expectations on his team.
Not one, not two. We want multiple championships.
That's what I thought of. Yeah.
I mean, how could you not, right? I mean, that's
LeBron,
just exactly. That's one of the first things that come to your mind. But for a fan base that's starving for a winner, for a champion, for just continued sustained success, coming from somebody who's done it at a high level every single place that he's been, and is literally coming off of a national championship. I mean, he comes in with that cachet. And also, I think it resonates with me with some other words. He says, I report to the Spanos family, to ownership, and I also feel like I report to the fans. Those are the things that you want to hear. I mean, that's what we all want. I mean, we want the Chargers to win a championship. We want to be in that upper echelon. We want to make sure that we get our ring. We want our Lombardi trophy.
That's what we want to do. We want to be known as world champions, and we're going to do it or die trying. That's Jim Harbaugh right there, right? And you believe him. And that's the thing is obviously, you don't want to get carried away, and you want to see it come to fruition. And I think a lot of that's going to come with him building the culture here. But it's just when he says it, you're like, oh my God, the Chargers might win multiple Super Bowls, right? Which is just crazy that, he could even get you to think that this early on. But I do think that building that culture is going to be one of the things that lets it happen. If they don't build the culture, if he can't bring that winning culture here, he's not going to get multiple championships, right? And when he was asked about how you change the culture, this is what he said. He said, the team. It's going to be a team effort. There's no magic formula. The only ones that I know are just good old-fashioned work and teamwork. And then the other operating word is work. Nothing is ever achieved without work. And David, now the work has to begin, because that is where it starts and where it finishes. How much work you're putting in is how much you're going to get out of it. And it feels like with Jim Harbaugh, this team is going to work.
They're definitely going to work. I mean, that's just a calling card of who he is and his personality, and all of the teams that he has coached, they take on that personality. And part of kind of establishing that type of work is bringing in somebody who can really bring that work out of the players. Ben Herbert is a big part of that. I mean, that's why he made that move, because he needs someone that's going to be with the players every single day, instilling that culture and really making sure that it's rewiring their brains and kind of taking that adjective of charging out of the equation by working it out and literally putting that work in every single day. More is more, trying to get better. This football team is going to undergo some serious changes, and it's required. It's needed. Jim Harbaugh is going to demand it.
Yeah, and I think, the other part of the culture is just how you play, right? And he said, we're going to aspire to be a team that Vince Lombardi could be proud of. Blocking, tackling, toughness, playing smart, playing fast, playing physical. Those are all still very important. And the message there is like, hey, a lot of things have changed. It's a more passing league now,
Yeah.
Maybe the old school things aren't in vogue anymore. But the thing is all of these things are still the keys to winning football games. And I think you could take a marker out and mark a few of those the Chargers have been falling short of in the last, decade plus, right? And that's where they can set themselves apart. And he also said this, when you're talking about building that culture, you're talking about building those players too. And this is what he said that I loved. We want to get that center of player development, that weight room, and let's have at it. You're hungry? You want to eat? This is an all-you-can-eat buffet right here. Let's get that work in. And according to him, the players responded back and said, let's get it, right? But that's, to me, such a telling moment. It's like, hey, don't tell me you want to work. If you want to work, there's an all-you-can-eat buffet right here. If you want to work, go work. There's no excuses. You have the resources. They have the things in place now with the new facilities that nothing's stopping you. You can do it as much as you want. And if the Chargers can do that, David, that's how you breed another tough team, right? That's how you breed the first tough Chargers team in a long time. And that was something he mentioned through and through. Like so many times you heard, we want to be a tough team. And that is part of building the culture.
Absolutely. I mean, when he was talking about building a tough team, he said it has to start with being humble and hungry, tight there. That's where we are right now. We're humble and hungry. We're going to respect all of our opponents. We're going to strive. We're going to earn their respect, and we're going to earn our winning as a team, a resilient team, a relentless team, a physical team. That's what we're going to aspire to be. Don't let the powder blues fool you. That's what we're aspiring to do. That's right there. That's setting the tone, setting the culture. I mean, just because we have the best uniforms in the NFL and we look the best does not mean that we are afraid to get these jerseys dirty and do work.
Yeah, and that is something, that don't let the aesthetic fool you, right? And the thing is like, he said it dead seriously. He said, don't let these powder blues fool you. And like, he had a very straightforward look on his face. And it's just...
Yeah, it wasn't a joke.
And the thing is, we talked about yesterday, right? The Harbaugh type of guys and what kind of guys he's looking for. And he's going to have to bring some of it in. But another part of it is just turning the guys that you already have into Harbaugh guys. And that starts with Ben Herbert in the weight room. He did confirm that Ben Herbert will be coming. We'll talk about the rest of the coaching staff pieces later on and kind of the moving parts, the guys he wouldn't confirm at this time. But Ben Herbert's going to be in there, and Ben Herbert's going to have these guys going. But I think when you're looking at him and you're hearing what he's saying about, what kind of team they're going to be, how he changes the culture in Los Angeles, you can't help but be excited about it, because I think every team wants to be the team that's going to finish you late in games. That's going to be the team that outworks you. When you stop, we keep going. And that's what he's saying here. He's saying, hey, that's how we win games. And the only way to win the games is to put the work in. There's no magic formula, right? There's no miracle grow you can put on this team to make them a champion. They all have to get in there and get to work. And that's why, I think he has such a love for guys like Justin Herbert and guys like Derwin James, guys that we know all love to work. He also talked about Rashawn Slater a little bit too, that Rashawn Slater was in there probably just working out. He might not even have been there to see Jim Harbaugh, right? He probably just got caught up working out. But those are Jim Harbaugh guys, and he loves those guys, and there's no one that he loves more than Justin Herbert, who he called the crown jewel of the NFL. And it's nice to see someone getting that excited about a quarterback that we've been excited about for as long as we have, right? But he didn't just talk about that. He talked about what they have to do to protect Justin Herbert and how that goes far past just the offensive line. And he also talked about what he would be looking for in this team's offensive coordinator. So way more great Jim Harbaugh clips from this press conference. So many good things to talk about coming up right after this. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is where you start. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes, and gone are the days of connecting your smartphone, the Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and an advanced available 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. I also need to tell you guys that we get into a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, but I do need to give you guys my hottest take of the day, which is the best lineup in LA right now, is the auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big-time bucks. Next up, they have the exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out their lineup, they've got the auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you could lower your monthly payments and get on the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. Visit your local Logix branch right here in LA and the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's LOGIX banking.com/car. Logix is a proud sponsor of For the Troops. For more information on the upcoming For the Troops Gala, visit www.forthetroops.org/event for more information. All right, David, well, we have more Jim Harbaugh quotes to get to because it was an eventful press conference, and we'll be talking about these, I'm sure, for the next couple of weeks. But the next thing I want to talk about absolutely is how he feels about his quarterback, Justin Herbert. And the last time we heard him talk in public on the set of CBS during, championship weekend, we heard him saying, hey, this guy I was starstruck to meet. And he kind of followed up on that when he was talking about him in his first official press conference. And what he started with was just, he's a crown jewel in the National Football League, and that is exactly how we should feel about it.
Absolutely. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and you want to have your head man, your head coach speak about the quarterback with that kind of reverence and that kind of level of respect, and just understanding the level of talent that Justin Herbert brings to the table. And also, I'm sure this is an exciting adventure for Jim Harbaugh as well, because he sees what Justin Herbert's done through the first 4 years of his NFL career, but the one thing that he has not done is win in the playoffs. And I think that's the one thing that I'm sure Jim Harbaugh is excited to kind of change the narrative around Justin Herbert by adding those wins to the resume, because as soon as that happens, all the haters are not going to have anything to say.
And the thing I really love about it is that he sees it as a challenge, right? He says, let's see if I'm man enough. Let's see if I'm a good enough coach so that all of his hard work can be realized. I just really want to work hard so that his hard work is going to be realized. Justin Herbert and every player on our football team. And I just like that he's up for that challenge, right? I like that he sees it as a challenge where it's like, hey, I have to get better and I have to give these guys everything so people stop slandering my damn quarterback, because he's playing great and they're not getting the results and he's getting the slander for it. I need to show him that the hard work that he's putting in is worth it. The sacrifice is worth it. And that's all he's been saying since he's been hired as the Chargers head coach is, hey, you're going to put in the work and the coaching staff is going to make sure it's worth it. And he also said the thing that's jumping out to him is just he has this enormous talent now where he says, I'm waking up like really early in the morning and go, hey, I got to bring it. I got to bring my A game in every sense of the word. And it's just nice to see, hey, he's taking it upon himself. He knows it's his job to maximize Justin Herbert, but he's actually down to be the one that has to carry that. And he's not afraid to put the expectations on himself to where, hey, I have this guy. We need to win. And when you're talking about winning and you're talking about Justin Herbert, he also knows that it starts with protecting him. And it was very clear that that was one of the first things on his docket was, how do I protect Justin Herbert? Because if I don't, you're going to end up seeing how the end of last year ended.
That's right. He said, first of all, the quarterback that we have, protect him. Protect his environment on the field. Protect him. I love all the players on the team like beloved sons, but the quarterback, he does touch the ball every single play. The person is somebody we have to protect. So, and this was a common theme throughout the press conference. Whenever anybody talked about Justin Herbert, it was, hey, we got to protect this guy. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh's got eyeballs. He's seen all the injuries that Justin Herbert has played through in his NFL career. I mean, the 2 injuries that he suffered last season and, having to end his season that way. And being a former quarterback, he knows the importance of having a good offensive line to protect, to allow Justin Herbert to use that ungodly arm talent to be able to get the ball in the hands of his receivers. It all starts up front. It all starts by giving him the time and the protection to go out and do what he does better than almost anybody on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows that. And he's saying he knows it's a problem. And he's saying he knows he has to fix it. But I thought the other interesting thing was just him saying, hey, it's not just the offensive line. That's not the only way you can protect your quarterback, right? You can protect him with a strong running game. You can protect him by having a great play action game. You can protect him on how you're protecting him on his dropbacks and how efficient you are with those dropbacks. So it goes further than just the offensive line. At the same time, you could hear how much he loves the offensive line, because part of that quote, you said, hey, that person is somebody that we have to protect. And the next thing was, I love the line too, where it's like, hey, I love everyone like a son. Everyone means everything to me. Justin Herbert's a little bit more important than the rest of them, though, and the offensive line is next in line because, hey, as he said, they need Justin Herbert. Every other player needs Justin Herbert to play well for them to do their job well offensively. Every player on the offense besides Justin Herbert is also relying on this offensive line because, hey, if you have a terrible offensive line, it doesn't matter how great the receivers are running their routes, right? Yeah. Then he also called upon the receivers too and said, hey, the running game isn't just about the offensive line. If we really want to build a strong running game, we also have to have strong receivers too that are going to go out there and block and instill that. And you see that with some of these great teams where it's like these good running teams, what do they all have in common? The receivers all block. So as much as it is offensive line, David, it is a group effort for the Chargers to protect Justin Herbert. And if the Chargers protect Justin Herbert, everybody eats.
Everybody eats. And part of that protection also is beefing up that running game as well. I mean, that's a big part of it, is being able to have a reliable running game that he doesn't have to do all of it by himself. They can become a little bit more balanced. And, that's going to take some pressure off to Justin Herbert so he can go out there and do his thing. But the protection,
and that's what they said with the offensive coordinator too, right? Because I think what he wants from the offense, protecting Justin Herbert, all of it goes hand in hand. And when talking about his offensive coordinator search and kind of what he's looking for, right, he talked about a lot of the things he wants to see from this offense, and balance was definitely up there at the top of the list.
Yeah, 100%. He said the offense is not going to turn the ball over, but is going to be able to drive, put points on the board, be physical, especially up front. A team that is tough, can tackle block on offense. We want to be balanced. A run and pass game have to protect the quarterback. There is a tone that is set there. That's exactly what it is. That's what you want. That's the best offenses in the NFL are balanced offenses where you don't know what's coming at you, how they're going to hit you, because the run and the pass are equally as effective.
And the funny thing is, too, is like I remember Brandon Staley's opening press conference, right? And we all got excited for that. He sold a lot of people, right? And at the end, when the wins don't happen, you just end up sounding like a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, with empty words.
Term.
Yeah,
exactly. It all starts ringing hollow when you're not getting the results, right? But it's funny that a few years later, we went from Brandon Staley saying, hey, we're going to be vertical. We're going to have Justin Herbert throwing the ball down the field. And now this is guy saying, hey, let's worry about getting the run game going, because that's important too, right? And so it's just funny kind of the different dynamics that you're talking about here, because the other part of having an offensive coordinator that I really appreciated as far as how he's going to approach who he selects is, for an offensive coordinator, what kind of offense do you want is what the question is going to be. What offense do you envision? What kind of unit do you envision? The next is really, tell me about the offensive line. Go through that position. That's where it starts. And what that tells me is, hey, with these offensive coordinators are, coming in, it's like, okay, we know the offensive line's a problem. Tell me what your solution is to start. And then we can start talking and getting into the nitty gritty.
It's important. They have to have a plan. They got to understand how they're going to be able to maximize this offensive line. We talked about it in the last few shows, is these guys that are on the offensive line, the majority of them, they're going to be here for a while. So it's about trying to get the most out of them. And the offensive coordinator, the guy who's leading the entire offensive charge, needs to have an understanding and a plan on how to maximize the guys that is on the football team, and also who they need to bring in to be able to get that unit firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. And it's cool to me, David, and the thing that makes me so happy about it is just like, we've seen it all, right? And the Chargers have had great quarterbacks, and they still haven't gotten the results that they want, right? Going back to Phillip Rivers, and when you think back on when Phillip Rivers was at his best, and then maybe not him individually, but as a team, when was it? I mean, it's 2006, it's 2007, early on when they were a running football team, right? And Phillip Rivers wasn't much more than a game manager back then. but they were still really good, and he could make the plays in big moments when they needed it. And I don't think that's going totally to a shift like that because it's Justin Herbert. You're not going to run it 50 times a game. You're just not. But not having Justin Herbert play hero ball is such a focus. And if you're reading in between the lines here, that's what he's telling you, right? Is like, we need the support staff around him, so we don't need Justin Herbert to think it's all on his plate. Everyone else, Daniel Pompa wrote about this when talking about his first press conference. Like, all these other coaches are trying to put so much on Justin Herbert's plate because he can handle it, when it's really like, hey, let's make it easier on him. Let's make life easier on Justin Herbert, and we'll win a lot of games that way. And I couldn't agree more. We've seen it when it's just Justin Herbert 2021 putting up 5,000 passing yards and 40-plus touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
It still didn't work. You didn't even get to the playoffs.
The wins weren't there, right?
No, exactly. So it's just like, we've seen what it looks like when Justin Herbert has great stats. I'll sacrifice that. I'll sacrifice some of those stats.
And I'm sure he would sacrifice that.
And that's what he's telling you, right? If you're reading between the lines, that's what he's saying here. So it's so great to see that. But the other thing he said is, we need to build an all-star staff that is worthy of coaching Justin Herbert, just as Jim Harbaugh wants to be worthy of coaching Justin Herbert. So we're going to get into what he expects for this staff, when it could be completed, and who is coming, because there's a few guys not confirmed. Who is staying? Could Ryan Ficken stay? And also his thoughts on new general manager Joe Hortiz coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about LinkedIn Jobs, because at the start of every new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team that you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And I think, especially when you're talking about the new year, starting the new year off in the right way, the last thing you want to do is hire somebody that doesn't fit with the culture that you have in your small business, somebody that is going to ruffle feathers and get in the way of production. That's the difference with LinkedIn, is getting the qualified candidates, getting someone who is going to fit in well so you can get your year off. I always want to say season, right? It's all the same, right? Get your season, get your year off to the best start possible. And as the Chargers know, there was no other fit that was going to make more sense than Jim Harbaugh. So the Chargers got the right fit. You can find the right fit for your small business with LinkedIn Jobs, because it's the number one rated in delivering quality candidates versus their leading competitors. They get you the best options available. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I also need to tell you guys about DoorDash, because with the biggest football game of the season coming up here pretty quickly, there's not a more important thing that you need to have ready than your DoorDash app. I promise you. Because what if you have the burgers, but you don't have the buns, right? What if you have the chips, but you don't have the dip? You can get rid of all of those worries with DoorDash, because when the biggest games comes, you can make sure you're ready. Because I'll tell you what, if I'm over there for the biggest game of the year and you don't have the right dips, you don't have the buns for those burgers, I'm not going back. I can tell you that much right now. The good news is you have all the grocery stores and your local restaurants right at your fingertips. And if you need anything, they can bring it right to you so you don't miss any game time in the biggest game of the season. So get prepared for your game day. Stock up on your favorite appetizers and order all the tailgate gear that you need with DoorDash. And you can save some money. Get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app, enter code LOCKED23, subject to change. Terms apply. Don't forget, use the code LOCKED23 for 50% off your order up to a $10 value when you hit your first order on the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more, subject to change. Terms apply. David, there's a lot more we want to get to from Jim Harbaugh, because he also went in depth about what he's going to do trying to build this all-star staff that we know that Justin Herbert deserves, and just something else to get really excited about, right? I mean, we've been really behind a lot of the hires that we've seen them make so far, and there's more to come, because I don't think this staff is anywhere near totally complete at this point. But I do want to tell you guys, make sure you're checking out the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, giving you the expertise for every sporting league, the only way that Locked On local experts know how. So make sure you guys are going to subscribe to that. But getting into building the all-star staff, David, that was one of the things that Jim Harbaugh has asked a lot of questions about, and I really liked how he talked about trying to build the staff that is going to bring this team the multiple championships that he wants to see.
Yep, you see he's going through the process right now. He says, I want to talk to as many people as I can before we make the final hires. Haven't made the final decisions on the staff yet, but getting to this staff, putting the staff together, we want an all-star staff that's worthy to coach our players that's what we are working on. And that's what you want to hear. I mean, and that's what he's kind of known for as well. Everywhere that he goes, besides just instilling the toughness and the physicality, is that this guy puts together all-star staffs. He puts together fantastic supporting coaches. He empowers those coaches, and he allows them to go out there and do their thing. He is more of a CEO type. Like we've talked about before, he's not really the X's and O's expert. I'm sure he's very sharp with that, but he doesn't have that as a particular specialty. He's a guy that likes to have his fingerprints and hands on the entire organization, have that vision kind of disseminated out, and he allows his coordinators to get the most out of his players.
Yeah, and that is what he's known for, right? He's known for kind of being a kingmaker in that sense. If you're on Jim Harbaugh's staff and you're a good coach, you're going to rise up quickly and you're going to get a better job out of it eventually. And that is what we've seen all over the place with Jim Harbaugh at every stop that he's ever been at, right? And I think it's nice to hear the dedication that he is putting in to bring the right staff together to get this team where it needs to go. And I think the next step will be just, okay, who are you going to keep? And he was asked that, and I think the one guy that we all think about, right? Because I'm sure maybe there are some guys that are kept. I mean, there's a lot of positions to fill if none of these guys are kept. I'll tell you that right now, right? Yeah. But you think of Ryan Ficken, and when he was asked about if he's keeping anyone on the staff, he said this: we're working through that now. Thanks for that question. Just some amazing, amazing coaches. Several that you mentioned, there have been conversations with. It's a process. But David, that's the hard thing too, is like you want to know that Ryan Ficken's going to stay. And it doesn't seem like it's out of the question at this point, but it's hard to know at this point if he's going to be sticking around.
Man, I sure hope so. I mean, I think, it doesn't take a trained eye to notice the difference that Ryan Ficken has been able to make with this Chargers special teams unit. I mean, it's just been it's been night and day. I mean, I don't think there's any better way to describe it. They were one of the worst special teams units in the league when he, showed up, before he showed up, when he got there.
For a long time, yeah.
Turned that around into a top 5, top 10 special teams unit. And, Coach Harbaugh is going to be ready. He's going to be dedicated and trying to spend the time to get that staff together. He said, I'm going to be here every day working until it's done. Sarah, it'll probably come home for a couple of days, but until that staff is hired and locked, cocked, and ready to rock, I will not be back to the house. So I just had to
like, hey, sorry to my wife if I didn't tell you yet, but I'm going to be gone for a long time until this staff is put together. And David, at least from what we heard from Lindsey Theory doing her own little one-on-one with Jim Harbaugh, it should be happening soon, and we can't wait for that.
Yeah, he said that, he's looking forward to having this staff put together in the next 3 to 5 days. So that means more announcements, more information, and we might be able to finally see, a little bit closer to what the vision is for this Chargers coaching staff.
Exactly, and I think the two big names that are out there right now that have already been linked to the Chargers and kind of what their status are Jay Harbaugh, his son, and Jesse Minter. Jesse Minter was his defensive coordinator. Jay Harbaugh was his special teams coordinator at Michigan. And this is what he said: nobody I respect more than Jesse Minter. He's phenomenal, a shining star. As a coach, I've been with him. I want to talk to as many people as I can before we make the final hires, but it would be tremendous. I think that with Jay Harbaugh, he's a great coach, a shining star as well. We'll let you know. Haven't made the final decisions on the staff yet. This is the interesting part, David, because here we know those guys are linked to him. What's the holdup, right? And I think at least for Jesse Minter, right, a coordinator position, if you want to be there, you have to go through the Rooney Rule and you have to at least interview one minority candidate. And as we know at this point, we don't know that they have, right? So I think that's why he's not saying officially Jesse Minter is the defensive coordinator, because they would get in a lot of trouble, because that means they're not giving anyone else a chance at the job, even though he's coming with him. What scares me is the only reason they wouldn't be able to say Jay Harbaugh is a coach right now is if he was a coordinator, because the coordinators and the head coach are the only thing you actually have to go through the Rooney Rule for. If they were just making Jay Harbaugh a special teams assistant, they could announce it. They could, hire him on the spot right now, and there'd be no problem with it. So that scares me a little bit that they haven't announced that and they're waiting on it, which makes me kind of feel like there's a Rooney Rule requirement part of this, where it's like they're waiting to bring on Jay Harbaugh, but to do that, they have to at least interview other special teams coordinators first.
Yeah, it's definitely that's not what I want to see. I think, like I said, Ryan Ficken's been a phenomenal coordinator, and he's proven it, at multiple stops, doing it with the Vikings, doing it here with the Chargers the last couple of years. I feel like he's earned that position, but ultimately that's going to be up to Coach Harbaugh, and I definitely trust all of his decision making, because he's earned that. He's won every single place that he's been. We can all have our personal favorites, but at the end of the day, he's the guy that's making the final decision.
Yeah, and we always knew, with Jim Harbaugh, it always maybe meant no Ryan Ficken. We always kind of knew that somewhere, right? and it's still alive, right? Aaron Wilson is a guy that reported earlier that Minter and Greg Roman and Jay Harbaugh were all coming with Jim Harbaugh weeks ago if he took the job, right?
Yeah.
Still don't know what Greg Roman's role is going to be. And he also put today, Aaron Wilson did, that, there's still a chance that they keep Ryan Ficken, basically. The best case scenario is if they can keep Ryan Ficken in addition to the guys that Jim Harbaugh brings on, and that would be smart in my opinion because he's done such a great job over the last 2 seasons. He is a guy that feels like a Harbaugh type of guy, at least to me. But he also talked about the new general manager, Joe Hortiz, and what their relationship was. And David, it was interesting to hear because the personnel power and all of those things are such a big talking point, especially with him signing on with the Chargers and how that relationship was going to work. But the good news is it feels like it is going to be a very collaborative thing where he's not going to get too much. He's not going to meddle too much with general manager, Joe Hortiz with general manager duties when he doesn't need to.
Yeah, he said, now here, my relationship with the GM, I really want to be Robin to his Batman in the offseason. Then when it turns around to the season, I'll be Batman and he'll be Robin. We'll be the Caped Crusaders, man, which is kind of funny. But I like that. I like that dynamic. I think that's probably how it should work. And, like you've said many times, Dan, he has a lot of responsibilities already having to be the head coach. And I don't think he has the time nor the energy to be the head coach and the general manager all the time, although we know his input's definitely going to be there. But also, he said about Joe Hortiz is he knows potentially some of our systems that we're going to put in on defense, on offense. It's a great fit, earned. If you talk about Joe Hortiz, it's been earned. There's a tremendous track record there. I know that for sure because of my brother, John.
Yeah, and he said, hey, there's nobody I trust more than my brother John. So if this guy says, hey, you guys are going to make a great fit and you guys are going to work well together, that means as much to him as anyone could actually tell him that, right? But to me, this is what I kind of felt like this meant, right? Because I always kind of felt like it was more about ownership not meddling more than it was about whoever the GM was not meddling, and I still feel that way.
Yeah.
And when he says the Batman and Robin thing, I take it as this, like, hey, in the offseason, when you have to figure out who we're going to draft, I need you, you're bringing me all that information, but I'm going to give you leeway to go bring in the guys that I want. You're going to give all the information that I need to bring in guys that we need for our offense and our defense the way we want to run things. But once the season starts, 2 linebackers go down, and I have to say, hey, we need somebody, then I'm Batman, right? And I need you to give me whoever I need to keep this season afloat, to build this roster to where it needs to be in season as well as in the offseason. Or, hey, we get 4 games in and things aren't working out with the offensive line. Things aren't working out with these cornerbacks. Let's get some competition in there now. So that's kind of how I took it, reading between the lines. And I think that's a smart relationship to have. And I think these 2 guys are going to work exceptionally well together because both seem very driven. And the biggest thing to me when he was talking about Joe Hortiz was just, he kept saying this, earned. This is a guy who worked his way through that system, a guy that worked his way with some of the most accomplished front office people in the business. He earned this job. It wasn't me, bringing him in and giving him a chance. He earned it all the way through. And I think that nothing is more true than that as far as what he said. But so much we didn't get into, right? Derwin James and just you think Jim Harbaugh thinks they're going to be okay with Derwin James? I'm going to say yes, right? Yes. If Jim Harbaugh is that excited to work with Derwin James, I'm that excited to see what Derwin James is going to do in 2024. And so much more we're not able to get into. But the good news is I think we're going to see some hirings over the weekend. So we'll be back here Monday with you guys to talk about that. We're also going to get Joe Hortiz talking himself next Tuesday, February 6th. So make sure you guys are aware of that press conference when that hits, because I'm equally as excited about that. Maybe a little less than Jim Harbaugh, because Jim Harbaugh is Jim Harbaugh. But very excited to see what the direction is. Very excited for this new era of Chargers football, and very excited for Chargers fans because they deserved a day like this. And you saw the start. You saw the beginning of the new era. You saw something to get excited and get hopeful about, and you deserve to have that hope, especially with someone you feel like can take care of it a little bit better than some of the coaches in the past. But make sure you guys are here for Monday's show, when I'm sure we're going to be talking about some new hires, and you can do that by following and subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find the show every day on all of our social media. You can find me on Twitter at DanTalkSports, David Drogemeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD, and the show's page at Locked On LAC. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We post the show to all of those places every day. So a good way to make sure you're not missing it is following all those places, including on YouTube, and listening and subscribing wherever you get your podcast from. But more exciting news to come. We'll be back with you guys on Monday because it is your team every day. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.